Hey guys, tonight we're going to be talking about a truly miserable job from the 17th century. We're not talking about cleaning out the privy or being a rat catcher, though those were pretty bad. No, we're talking about a job that was in its own quiet way. Just as soul-crushing being a port inspector tasked with enforcing a travel ban. Imagine it. You're standing on a cold, wind-swept dock in some little English port. The smell of salt and fish a constant companion, and your job is to keep people from leaving. Not because they've done anything wrong, but because the Crown has decided that the world outside is just too dangerous. Too full of plague and Protestant dissenters and general unrest. You're the gatekeeper, the one who stands between a person and their hope for a new life. And let's be honest, you probably wouldn't survive a week. The cold, the lack of good food, the constant threat of a smuggling gang, it was a brutal existence. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And if you're listening tonight, let me know where you are and what time it is for you in the comments. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You're a new man. Really? The old you. The one who worked the fields and smelled of earth and sweat is gone. In his place is a port inspector, a man of official business in a slightly too big wool coat that chafes at your neck. The sea air is different here, sharper, cleaner in a way, but also more aggressive. It bites at your face and numbs your fingers. A stark contrast to the thick, humid air of the fields. Your new home is a small, damp cottage near the docks, and your new office is little more than a wooden shack with a single, grimy window that looks out onto the churning gray waves. This is your new life, and you're not sure if you've been blessed or cursed. Your first day on the job is less a grand beginning and more a slow, miserable immersion. You're given a thick stack of papers, the ink on them still smelling faintly of the city. These are your orders, your new Bible. You're to enforce the proclamation for restraint of departing out of the kingdom. A mouthful of a title for a simple, devastating concept. No one is to leave without a license, not merchants, not scholars, and certainly not the common folk who are desperate enough to risk it all for a better life in the Americas or anywhere else far from this dreary island. Your boss, a grizzled old man named Alistair who looks like he's been carved from a piece of driftwood, just grunts and points to the papers. "Read 'em," he rasps, his voice a gravelly whisper. "Know 'em by heart. The smugglers know 'em better than you, and they'll exploit every word you don't understand." You nod, feeling the weight of the papers in your hands, the weight of the law, the weight of a king you've never met. The first few days are a blur of paperwork and patrols. You walk the docks, your boots thudding on the wooden planks. The sound of the gulls a constant, irritating chorus. You learn to recognize the faces of the local fishermen, the merchants, the ship captains. You learn the names of their boats, the schedules of their comings and goings. You're supposed to be a human barrier, but you feel more like a scarecrow, a hollow figure meant to deter but not truly capable of stopping anything. The truth is, the ban is less of a solid wall and more of a leaky sieve. Everyone knows it. The smugglers, the captains, the desperate souls who gather on the docks. Their eyes full of a wild, impossible hope. Historians still debate whether these bans were ever truly meant to be watertight, or if they were simply a way for the Crown to exert control and collect bribes from those who could afford a license. For you, on the ground, it's a frustrating, humbling reality. You see your first real test on a blustery Tuesday, a small fishing smack. The Sea Witch is preparing to leave. Its captain, a wiry man with a face like a dried apple, presents his papers. Everything is in order. A standard fishing trip to the nearby shoals. But as you glance over the side of the boat, You see a flash of color, a woman's skirt, peeking out from beneath a pile of fishing nets. You freeze. Your heart thuds against your ribs. This is it. Your first real moment of enforcement. Alistair, who seems to have a sixth sense for trouble, appears at your side. His eyes, the color of a stormy sea, are fixed on the boat. He doesn't say a word, just watches you. You know what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to call them out, to demand they open the nets, to expose the woman hiding there, to ruin her life and the captain's livelihood. But you hesitate. The wind whips around you, carrying the scent of the sea and the faint, sweet smell of a new beginning that you know is waiting for her. Just beyond the horizon, you look at the captain. His face is a mask of studied indifference. But his eyes, for a split second, betray a flicker of fear, and you see in that flicker not a criminal, but a man doing what he has to do. A man helping someone. Probably a relative, a friend. Escape this miserable place. You remember the face of your own sister who once dreamed of leaving for the Americas, and the way her dreams died. One by one, with each passing year, the moment stretches. A taut, silent wire. You swallow hard, the taste of salt on your tongue. You have a choice to make, your duty or your conscience. Alistair is still watching, a silent judge. But you're the one who has to live with your decision. All seems to be in order. Captain, you say, your voice a little shaky, a little too loud. But mind you keep those nets in good repair. We've had a few tear on the last haul. The captain's face doesn't change. But you see a subtle, almost imperceptible sag in his shoulders. A release of tension. "Aye, sir," he says. His voice a low growl. "Always do." He pushes off from the dock, and the Sea Witch glides out into the choppy water. As it moves away, you see a small white handkerchief flutter from the nets for just a moment. A silent thank you. A silly, dramatic thing to do. Really, a good smuggler would never draw attention to themselves. But you understand the sentiment. It's a moment of victory. A small, quiet rebellion against a system that feels designed to crush you. Alistair puts a hand on your shoulder. You brace yourself for a lecture, for a reprimand, but he just squeezes it once. A brief, surprising show of solidarity. A man's gotta choose his battles. He grumbles, and then he turns and walks away. Leaving you alone on the dock, you watch the Sea Witch shrink to a speck on the horizon, feeling a strange mix of pride and shame. You've broken the law, but you've done something right. Maybe this job isn't just about following orders. Maybe it's about figuring out when to turn a blind eye. But that's a thought for a calmer time. A thought you can contemplate as you trudge back to your shack. The wind howling around you, the cold seeping into your bones. The day is done, and you've let one person escape. How many more will there be? And what will you do when the next one comes along? The days and weeks following are a repetitive cycle of patrols and paperwork. The ban, as you've quickly learned, is a constant source of frustration for everyone. Merchants grumble about the delays in getting licenses for their goods, and fishermen complain about the extra scrutiny they face every time they leave port. You're the face of this frustration, a young man who has to enforce a rule that no one, not even you, truly believes in. The most popular complaint you hear, a common historical truth from this time, is that these bans stifled trade and hurt the English economy, leading to widespread discontent. But what can you do? Your job is to enforce, not to question. You start to notice the patterns. The ships that always seem to have a few extra crates that aren't on the manifest. The captains who are a little too friendly, always offering you a dram of rum or a piece of cheese. The way people's eyes dart away when you ask a direct question. You're not a fool, and you quickly learn to read the silent language of the docks. A little-known detail from this period is the sheer number of false documents that were being produced. You see them all the time. Forged licenses, fake travel papers, letters of permission with seals that are a little too wobbly. The smugglers have a whole industry dedicated to getting people out. And you're just one man against an entire criminal network? They're clever, too. They'll hide people in barrels of salted fish, in the hold of a ship with the cargo, even in secret compartments built into the hull. It's a game of wits, and you're a rookie. One day, you get a tip. A whisper on the docks about a family of dissenters. People who follow a different religious path, who are planning to leave for Holland on a merchant ship. The ship, the Lady Jane, is set to leave at dawn. You're told the family will be hidden in a crate of wool. This is a big one. These are the people the ban was really designed for. The people the crown fears the most. You spend the night tossing and turning in your damp bed. The thought of the family heavy on your mind. You know what you have to do. You have to stop them. But you also know the penalty for being caught. Fines, imprisonment. Even worse, the father, a man named Thomas, is known to you. He's a good man. A hard-working weaver. His wife. A quiet woman who always has a kind word for you. And their two small children. You can't get the image of them out of your head. Huddled in a crate, terrified, hoping for a new life. When dawn breaks, you're at the dock. Your stomach in a knot. The Lady Jane is ready to sail. The captain, a portly, jolly man named Silas, greets you with a wide, toothy grin. He's the type of man who you suspect has a hand in everything, but can never quite prove it. You start your inspection, your hands shaking slightly. You check the manifest, the licenses, the cargo. Everything is in order. You walk the deck, your eyes scanning for anything out of place. And there it is, a large wooden crate, sealed with an official-looking wax stamp. But you notice a single, tiny scratch on the side, a new mark on an otherwise old crate. It's not much, but it's enough. You pause. Your hand on the crate. The captain is watching you, his grin a little tighter now, a little less genuine. Just wool. Inspector, he says, his voice a little too casual. From the finest sheep in Wiltshire. You look at him. Then at the crate, you can hear the faint, muffled sound of a child's cough from inside. It's a tiny, almost inaudible sound. But in the quiet of the morning, it's like a thunderclap. You feel a wave of nausea wash over you. This is it. This is your chance to prove yourself. To be the diligent inspector you're supposed to be. Or to be a human being. You close your eyes for a moment, and you see the face of Thomas. The weaver. You see his wife. The quiet woman. You see the hopeful, frightened faces of their children, and you know what you have to do. You take a deep breath, the cold air burning your lungs. Wool, you say you ask, your voice steady now, a new resolve in it. Seems a bit dusty. Make sure you don't get it on the deck. I just had it scrubbed yesterday. You give the crate a firm, but not too hard. Pat, good luck with your journey. Captain, Silas's face, for a brief moment, is a study in surprise, relief, and a kind of grudging respect. Thank you, Inspector, he says, his voice now back to its usual jolly self. Safe travels to you as well. As the ship pulls away from the dock, you stand there, watching it go. You didn't just let a family escape, you let a group of people who were being persecuted for their beliefs find a new home. You didn't just break the law, you did the right thing. And for the first time since you started this miserable job, you feel a flicker of something that isn't cold or dread. You feel a little bit of warmth, a little bit of hope. It's a dangerous feeling, a rebellious feeling. It's the feeling that maybe, just maybe, you can make a difference in this cruel, indifferent world. Your official duties continue. A monotonous grind of patrols and inspections. The days blend into each other, the seasons changing with little fanfare. Winter sets in, and the wind off the sea becomes a truly monstrous thing, cutting through your thick wool coat and numbing your bones. The docks are slick with ice, and the ships are covered in a fine layer of frozen sea spray. This is the part of the job that no one talks about, the sheer physical misery of it all. You're not a hero, you're not a villain, you're just a man, fighting against the cold and the crushing weight of a job you've come to despise. But there are small moments that keep you going. The small nod of a fisherman who you've let slip by with a little too much cargo, the shared flask of rum with a captain on a particularly cold night, the stories they tell you of the world beyond, of the new lands, of the promise of a life free from poverty and persecution. These stories are your secret sustenance, the things you chew on in the long, lonely nights in your damp cottage. One evening, Alistair comes to your shack. He doesn't knock, just pushes the door open and stands there. A great, solid mass of wool and shadow. He holds a small, leather-bound pouch in his hand. "For your diligence," he says. His voice a low rumble. He tosses the pouch to you. It lands with a heavy thud on your rough wooden table. You open it, and inside are a few coins, more than you've made in a month. You look at him, confused for turning a blind eye to that last ship, he says, his face a grim mask. The merchants are happy. The captain is happy. The crown still thinks the ban is being enforced. Everyone wins. You stare at the coins, feeling a mixture of revulsion and relief. This is the unofficial currency of the docks. Bribery, corruption, you've seen it happen, but you've never been a part of it. Until now. You think about the warm fire you could buy, the new boots, the better food, the cold, the hunger, the constant ache in your bones, and you know, with a sickening certainty, that this is the path you will walk from now on. You are a part of the system now, not just an enforcer. You are a cog, turning with the grease of bribes and lies. You pick up the pouch, the leather feeling slick and dirty in your hands. "Thank you," you say, the words tasting like ash in your mouth. Alistair just grunts again and leaves. The door swinging shut behind him with a final, heavy thud. You're alone again, with a pouch of dirty money and a conscience that feels just as soiled. You start to see the world differently. The ban is no longer a matter of duty or conscience. It's a business. You learn which captains are willing to pay and which ones are not. You learn to read the signals, the subtle gestures that mean a bribe is on the table. You become a master of the double take, of the almost inspection, of the question that isn't really a question, and you get better at it. You become a part of the machine, a silent, complicit partner in the very thing you were hired to stop. But the money, while it buys you comfort, doesn't buy you peace. You still see the faces of the people you've helped, and the faces of the people you've turned away. You've let some go for free, out of a sense of compassion, but you've also taken money from others, from merchants who just want to get their goods to market, from wealthy men who want to send their sons to study abroad. The line between right and wrong, between duty and corruption, has blurred into a gray, murky mess, just like the sea outside your window. And then there are the stories. The ones you hear from the returning sailors. Stories of a place called Jamestown, of a new colony in a new world. They talk about vast, untamed forests, of rivers full of fish, of a chance to own land, to be your own master. The stories are wild, improbable things, full of danger and hardship, but also full of hope. They talk about a society that is being built from the ground up, a place where a man can be judged not by his birthright, but by the work of his hands. You, a man who has always been bound by the soil, by the strict hierarchy of England, find yourself drawn to these stories. You listen with an intensity that surprises you. You start to see the ban not just as a miserable job, but as a cage for the whole country, a cage for you. The crown wants to keep its subjects here, to keep them in their place, but the world outside is beckoning, full of promise and danger, a world of freedom. The thought of leaving is a wild, impossible fantasy. You have a job, a home, a life here, but you also have the money you've been saving. Coin by coin, bribe by bribe. It's a secret stash, a nest egg of corruption. But you start to think of it not as dirty money, but as a ticket. A ticket out of this miserable job, out of this miserable country, to a new life in a new world. The idea is terrifying, but it's also the most exhilarating thing you've ever considered. The next few months are a slow, methodical preparation. You save every coin you can, selling off what few possessions you have that aren't necessary. You listen to every sailor's tale, memorizing the routes, the dangers, the promises. You become an expert on the new world, a cartographer of hope. You learn that the journey is long and dangerous, full of sickness and storms, but you also learn that it is possible, that people just like you are doing it every day. The final push comes on a cold, gray morning. A ship, the Pilgrim's Rest, is set to leave for the Americas. The captain is a quiet, serious man who doesn't believe in bribes. He is a dissenter himself, a man of faith and conviction. This is your chance. You know you can't get on with a forged license. You can't bribe your way onto the ship. You have to go as you are, a man with a job to do. You stand on the dock, watching the ship get ready to sail. The wind is biting. The sea is gray and angry. You can see the faces of the people on the deck, full of a mix of fear and hope that you know all too well. You see a family, a young couple with a small child, their belongings a few small bundles. You see a single man, a scholar by the looks of him, his face pale and serious, and you see yourself, a man who has been living a lie, a man who has a chance to finally live the truth. You walk up the gangplank, your heart pounding in your chest. The captain, a man named Bartholomew, looks at you, his eyes a clear, steady blue. "Can I help you, Inspector?" he asks. His voice calm and firm. You don't say a word. You just reach into your pocket, and you take out your official inspector's seal, the one that gives you the authority to enforce the ban, and with a single, deliberate movement, you throw it into the sea. It hits the water with a small splash and sinks into the cold, gray depths. Bartholomew watches you, a flicker of understanding in his eyes. You look at him, and for the first time in a long time, you feel a sense of peace. "I'm not an inspector anymore," you say, your voice a whisper against the wind. "I'm a passenger." He nods, a small, knowing smile on his lips. "Welcome aboard," he says, and you walk onto the deck, leaving behind a life of lies and misery, and stepping into a future full of uncertainty and hope. The ship pulls away from the dock, the land you've always known shrinking into a memory. You're no longer a gatekeeper. You're a traveler, on a journey to a new world, a journey to a new you. You stand on the deck of the ship, the wind whipping your hair, the spray of the ocean a constant mist on your face. The English coastline is a faint line on the horizon, a smudge of gray and green that will soon disappear forever. You think of Alistair, of the fishermen, of the merchants, of the lies and the bribes and the cold. You think of the people you helped, and the people you turned away, and you know, with a deep, abiding certainty, that you've made the right choice. This is not just a journey to a new place. It's a journey to a new self, a journey to a new chapter of your life, a chapter that is yet to be written. The sea stretches out before you, an endless, churning expanse of water. It is a terrifying sight, but also a beautiful one. It is a symbol of the unknown, of the future. You feel a sense of freedom you've never known, a weight lifting from your shoulders that you didn't even know was there. You are no longer bound by the rules of a king you've never met, or by the expectations of a society you've come to loathe. You are a man on the move, a man with a future, and as the ship sails on, you feel a quiet, profound peace settle over you. a peace that has been a long time coming. The sea air is different now, isn't it? It's not the same biting, briny cold of the English docks. Out here, it's a vast, lung-filling reality, an endless blue that stretches in all directions. You're not just a man on a boat, you're a speck in the middle of a world that suddenly feels immense and untamable. The creaking of the ship's timbers is a constant lullaby, and the rhythmic slap of waves against the hull is a drumbeat to a new life. You find a quiet spot on the deck, leaning against the rough wood of the railing, and just watch. Watch the waves, watch the gulls. Watch the clouds that scud across the sky like forgotten ships. It's a peace you haven't felt in a very, very long time. You find your sea legs quickly enough. The constant rocking and swaying of the ship becomes a part of you, a natural rhythm. The other passengers, a diverse mix of dissenters, laborers, and a few enterprising merchants, are a microcosm of the new world you're heading towards. You talk to a woman named Ilara, a widow traveling with her young son. Her face a mask of weary hope. She's a weaver, like Thomas from back home. And she talks about the promise of land, of a place where her son can grow up without the constant threat of poverty and persecution. You talk to a grizzled old sailor named Silas, not the captain of the Lady Jane. A different Silas who has crossed the Atlantic a dozen times. He tells you stories of storms that could swallow a ship whole, of whales that sang songs in the dead of night, and of a land that was both beautiful and terrifying. He tells you that the New World isn't a paradise, but it's a place where a man can build his own. Your days fall into a simple pattern. You wake with the sunrise, eat a sparse breakfast of hardtack and watered-down ale, and spend the day either helping with chores or simply watching the sea. At night, you listen to the stories, the songs, the prayers of your fellow passengers. The journey itself was a historical melting pot, where people from different walks of life, who would never have spoken to each other in England, found common ground in their shared hope for a new beginning. You, the former inspector, the man of the crown? Find yourself laughing with a dissenter, sharing a drink with a common laborer, and listening with rapt attention to the stories of a sailor. It's a strange, beautiful camaraderie born of shared purpose and a common enemy, the past. The first major test of your journey comes a week or so into the voyage. A storm rolls in. Not a quick squall, but a proper tempest that turns the sky a bruised purple and the sea into a roiling. Monstrous beast. The ship is tossed around like a child's toy. The wind howls, a demonic shriek that seems to tear at the very fabric of the sails. Rain falls in sheets, and the deck becomes a treacherous, slick surface. You're terrified. Of course, everyone is. The fear is a thick, tangible thing, a cold hand squeezing your heart. But in the midst of the chaos, you find a strange calm. You're not a sailor, but you find yourself helping where you can, holding ropes, bailing out water, reassuring Alara's frightened son. You're not the helpless man you were back home, the man who let life happen to him. You're an actor now, a man with a purpose. You're fighting for your new life. You remember your first day on the docks. The feeling of inadequacy, that man is gone. In his place is a man who knows how to work with his hands, a man who knows how to endure the storm, like all things. Eventually passes. The sun breaks through the clouds, casting a golden light on the tired, battered ship. The sea is still choppy, but it has returned to its beautiful, endless blue. You're soaked to the bone, exhausted, but you feel a surge of pride. You survived. You, a former port inspector, a man who had only ever known the quiet misery of the docks, had survived a storm on the open sea. It's a small victory, but it feels monumental. One night, as you're sharing a cup of rum with Silas, you ask him about the rumors, the whispers you've heard on the docks back home. Whispers of a different kind of ban. Not a ban on leaving, but a ban on arriving. A ban on certain types of people. A ban on certain types of ideas. Silas laughs. a short, humorless bark? Historians still debate the extent to which these early colonies truly embraced religious freedom, or if they simply created a new set of orthodoxies to enforce. Silas tells you that the New World isn't a utopia. There are towns, he says, where you can be fined or even banished for not attending the right church. There are communities where you're welcome, and others where you're not. It's a new set of rules, a new set of laws. The world is a cage, he says, and you just have to find the one with the biggest gaps between the bars. This is a sobering thought. You hadn't thought about that. You were so focused on escaping the old world that you hadn't considered the rules of the new one. You think of Thomas and his family, of Ilara and her son. They're escaping one form of persecution, only to possibly face another. It's a grim thought, but you don't let it linger. You've come too far to turn back. You'll deal with the new rules when you get there. You've become an expert at bending them, after all. You spend your time with Ilara and her son, Liam. You find yourself playing with the boy, telling him stories of the sea and the stars. You find yourself comforting Ilara, telling her that everything will be all right. You've become a protector, a role you never would have imagined for yourself. You, who were once a lonely cog in a miserable machine, are now a part of a small, self-reliant community. You found a new purpose, a new kind of family. This is the truth of the New World, a truth that no king or proclamation could ever stop the formation of new bonds. The creation of new families, the building of new communities. The journey continues, a slow, steady progression across the vast, empty ocean. The days blur together, the sun a constant companion, the moon a steady guide. You learn to read the stars, to tell the time by the position of the sun. You learn to appreciate the simple things, the taste of a fresh-caught fish, the warmth of the sun on your face, the quiet camaraderie of your fellow passengers. You're no longer a port inspector. You're a seafarer, a traveler, a man on his way to a new life. And as you stand on the deck, watching the endless blue, you feel a deep, abiding sense of peace. The past is a country you've left behind, and the future is a land you are sailing toward. The days turn into weeks, and the weeks into a slow, measured month. The endless blue of the Atlantic becomes a strange kind of home. You've grown accustomed to the ship's rhythm, the groaning of the wood, the slap of the waves, the constant, shifting deck beneath your feet. Your past life on the English docks feels like a dream, a hazy memory of cold wind and endless regulations. Here, there are only two rules survive the ocean and hold on to hope. You find yourself spending more time with Ilara and her son. Liam, the boy, once timid and wide-eyed, has begun to see you as a steady presence, a kind of surrogate father. He brings you shells he finds on the deck, and you show him how to look for the North Star, a steady point in a world of constant motion. Ilara, in turn, has begun to drop her guard. You learn about her husband, a gentle man who had a talent for weaving patterns of startling beauty, but was ultimately broken by the constant pressure of a society that didn't tolerate his faith. She tells you that she isn't seeking riches in the New World, but a simple life, a place where her son can be a weaver without fear. One evening, as the sun dips below the horizon in a blaze of orange and purple, you're standing at the railing with Ilara. The air is warm, and the sea is calm, a gentle rocking motion that feels like a cradle. You're talking about the New World, about the stories you've heard. She mentions a rumor she'd heard from another passenger, a rumor that was a common tale among those seeking a new life, that the English crown was considering a new kind of ban. Not a ban on leaving, but a ban on certain skills. That they would try to stop skilled laborers, weavers, blacksmiths, carpenters from leaving, in an attempt to protect their own industries. It's a chilling thought, a twist on the very ban you were hired to enforce. Historians still argue about the effectiveness of such mercantilist policies. debating whether they truly protected domestic industries or simply stifled innovation. But for you, for Ilara, for all the skilled laborers on this ship, it's a very real fear. It's a fear that the long, cold arm of the English crown could reach across the ocean and touch their new lives. You, of all people, know how easily a ban could be twisted, how a law could be bent to serve a purpose far beyond its original intent. You remember the faces of the smugglers, the faces of the desperate families, and you remember Alistair and the pouch of coins he gave you. You know that a ban on skills would be no different. It would create a new class of people to be smuggled out, a new kind of illegal trade, and a new kind of misery. It would turn a man's talent into a crime, his livelihood into a liability. The thought is heavy, but you push it away. You're on a ship, in the middle of the ocean. The past is a country you've left behind, and the future is an open page. You look at Ilara, her face lit by the last rays of the sun, and you see not a woman fleeing persecution, but a woman filled with strength and resolve. You see a future, not just for her, but for her son, and for all of you on this ship. The ban, in all its forms, is a thing of the past. It's a memory, a story to be told by a fire in a new free land. Free. The ship groans. A deep, satisfied sound. The stars begin to pop out, one by one, against the deep indigo of the sky. The North Star, your constant companion, is there, steady and bright. You feel a sense of peace, a quiet kind of happiness that you never thought you'd feel again. The journey is long, but you're not alone. You have Ilara and Liam. You have the other passengers. You have a shared dream, and a shared enemy, the past. And you have the vast, empty ocean, a promise of a future that is not yet written. The ship's constant motion is no longer a novelty. It's the new normal. Your body has acclimated. Your mind has adjusted. The land is a distant, almost mythical concept. Something you remember from stories, not from life. You've come to understand that the ocean is its own world, with its own rules, its own moods. It can be a glassy, reflective surface one moment and a churning, monstrous beast the next. And in this world, everyone is equal. The rich merchant, the pious dissenter, the common laborer, you're all just a bit of flotsam, a small community of souls at the mercy of the elements. You're a man who once held a position of authority, and now you're just another passenger, another mouth to feed, another pair of hands to help with the chores. And you find that you like it. You've grown closer to Ilara and Liam. You find yourself teaching Liam simple sailor's knots, a skill you learned from the old salt. Silas, the boy's small fingers, once clumsy and fumbling, now work with a surprising dexterity. You see in him a kind of quiet determination that reminds you of his mother. Ilara, in turn, has started to open up more. She talks about her dreams, not just for her son, but for herself. She wants to start a small weaving business, to create beautiful patterns not just for the nobility, but for everyone. A simple dream, a humble dream, but one that was impossible in the old world. One afternoon, as the sun beats down on the deck, a hush falls over the ship. The first signs of land. Not the solid, unmistakable shape of a coastline, but a subtle change in the air, a new scent. Not just the salt and brine of the ocean, but the smell of damp earth, of pine trees, of something wild and untamed. The horizon, once a perfect line, is now a faint, dark smudge, a wave of excitement, tinged with a little fear, ripples through the passengers. This is it, the new world, the place you've been dreaming of. The place you've been sailing towards for what feels like an eternity. But with the excitement comes a new kind of anxiety. The ban you were hired to enforce was a barrier to leaving. Now, you're facing a new kind of barrier, a new set of rules you don't know. You've been told that the new world isn't a utopia, that there are different communities, different laws, different expectations. A common argument among modern historians is that these early colonies, while founded on principles of religious freedom, often had very strict rules and social hierarchies of their own. You think of the rumors of towns where you could be banished for not attending the right church, of communities that were built on the very kind of rigid, exclusionary thinking that you all left behind. You've escaped one cage, but are you simply walking into another? You talk to Alara about your fears. She listens, her face thoughtful. A cage is a cage, she says. Her voice quiet but firm. But this one, at least, is of our own making. And if we don't like the rules, we can change them. Or we can build our own community, where the only rules are those of kindness and hard work. Her words are a balm to your troubled mind. She's right. You are no longer subject to a king you've never met. You are free. Free to choose. Free to build. Free to fail. And free to try again. The ship sails on, the dark smudge on the horizon growing bigger, clearer. The air is thick with the smell of the new land now, a scent of promise and danger all at once. You stand with Alara and Liam at the railing, your hand on the boy's small shoulder. You are a family now, a small, makeshift unit of hope and determination. You don't know what the future holds, what rules you will have to contend with, what challenges you will have to overcome. But for the first time in your life, you are not afraid, you are ready, you are a man with a new life, a new family, and a new world to build. The new world smells of promise. It's a heavy, damp scent of pine and rich earth, a smell that is completely alien yet strangely familiar, like a forgotten memory brought back to life. The first sight of land is not a grand, welcoming port, but a wild, untamed coastline, a thick green wall of trees that seems to stretch on forever. The ship, the Pilgrim's Rest, is dwarfed by the sheer scale of it all. You are no longer on a journey, you have arrived. But this is not an end. It is a beginning. And with every beginning comes a new set of challenges. A new set of rules to navigate. The ship drops anchor in a small, sheltered cove. A longboat is lowered, and one by one, the passengers make their way to shore, their faces a mix of awe and apprehension. You stand with Alara and Liam, a small, quiet family unit, a testament to the new bonds forged on the long, difficult journey. You help them ashore, your boots sinking into the soft, loamy soil. This is the first time you've stood on solid ground in months, and the feeling is both exhilarating and unsettling. The earth, once a constant in your life, now feels like a foreign land. The first few weeks are a blur of hard, exhausting work. You're all pioneers now, not passengers. You learn to fell trees, to clear land, to build a shelter from the rough-hewn logs. Your hands, once soft from a life of paperwork, are now calloused and raw, but strong. You work alongside Alara, her hands as rough as yours, and you watch as Liam, no longer the timid boy of the ship, helps in his own small way, carrying kindling and fetching water. The work is relentless, but there is a strange kind of joy in it. You are not building for a king or for a landlord. You are building for yourselves. The community is a fragile, self-reliant thing. Everyone has a role. The carpenter, the blacksmith, the farmer. Everyone's skills are vital, a sharp contrast to the old world where a man's worth was determined by his birthright. Not his talent. You, the man with no discernible skills beyond enforcing a ban. Find a new purpose. You are good with your hands, you are strong, you are a hard worker, and that is all that matters here. But the new world is not without its own brand of old world problems. The community, a mix of different religious groups, soon begins to show signs of discord. A group of particularly strict separatists, led by a stern-faced man named Elias, begins to argue for a more rigid, theocratic society. They want to enforce a strict moral code, to ban dancing and singing and anything they deem unholy. They want to create a new kind of ban. A ban on joy, a ban on dissent. You, of all people. See the danger in this. You've seen what happens when a community starts to believe that it has the right to police the thoughts and actions of its members. It's a point of contention among scholars whether these early settlements were truly escaping religious persecution or simply establishing new, dominant religions of their own. You see it happening right in front of you. The old world's sickness, the need to control and police, has traveled across the ocean with you all. The tension comes to a head one Sunday after a particularly fiery sermon from Elias. He is standing in the middle of the small clearing, his face red with righteous anger, pointing to a small group of people who had been quietly singing a folk song the night before. "Sinners," he bellows, his voice echoing through the trees. "We did not come all this way to bring the devil with us." You feel a familiar anger rise in your chest. An anger you haven't felt since you threw your inspector's seal into the sea. This is what you left behind. This is the very thing you escaped. You look at Alara, her face pale, and you see the fear in her eyes. The fear that her son, a boy who loves to sing, will be judged, will be punished, will be made to feel like a criminal for something as simple as a song. You step forward, your hands clenched into fists. You don't know what you're going to say, but you know you have to say something. You look at Elias, this man who would build a new cage for you all, and you see not a man of God, but a man of fear. "We did not come here to be judged, Elias," you say, your voice low and steady. "We came here to be free." Your words are a small stone dropped into a still pond, but the ripples are immediate. The other colonists, who had been watching in silence, begin to murmur in agreement. Elias is taken aback, his righteous fury giving way to a stunned silence. You've challenged him, not with a law or with an edict, but with a simple truth. And in this new world, a simple truth can be more powerful than any law. The confrontation doesn't solve everything. Of course, the tensions remain, a low, simmering fire beneath the surface of the community. But you've done something important. You've drawn a line. You've shown that the old ways, the old laws, the old prejudices will not be allowed to take root without a fight. You, the man who once enforced a ban, have become a protector of freedom. And as you walk back to your small cabin with Alara and Liam, you feel a deep, abiding sense of purpose. The work of building a new world is not just about clearing trees and building cabins. It's about building a new kind of society, a new kind of community, a community based on freedom, not on fear. The new world is not a place of quiet contemplation. It is a place of endless, back-breaking labor. The trees seem to grow back as fast as you can chop them down. The earth, while rich and fertile, is stubborn, full of rocks and roots that fight you every step of the way. Your hands are a map of this struggle, a landscape of calluses, cuts, and blisters. But there is a quiet satisfaction in it. Every log you cut, every stone you pull from the earth, is a tangible step towards a new life, a new home. You are no longer just a man, you are a builder. And the satisfaction of seeing a cabin take shape, of watching a field slowly get cleared, is a powerful antidote to the misery you left behind. Alara and Liam are your constant companions in this work. The three of you have become an unofficial family, a small unit of shared labor and quiet moments of joy. You work together, you eat together, and in the evenings, you sit by the fire, listening to the crackle of the wood and the distant, unfamiliar sounds of the forest. The tension with Elias and his followers is still there, a low hum beneath the surface of the community. But your small act of defiance seems to have given others courage. People are still careful, but they are also more willing to speak their minds, to push back against the rigid rules that Elias seeks to impose. One afternoon, as you're clearing a patch of land for a new field, you come across a strange, beautiful sight. A field of wildflowers? Unlike anything you've ever seen in England, they are a riot of colors: deep purples, brilliant reds, vibrant yellows. It's a beautiful, unexpected splash of life in the midst of all the hard work. Liam, who has been helping you pull rocks from the earth, sees them and runs to them. His face a mask of pure delight. He starts to pick them. A handful for his mother. A handful for you. He brings them to you. A small, vibrant bouquet. And you feel a lump form in your throat. This is why you came here. This is the promise of the New World. But the New World is not just a place of beauty and hard work. It is also a place of rumors and whispers. One evening, a man who had been traveling to a nearby settlement returns with a grim tale. The king, it seems, has decided to escalate his control over the colonies. He has issued a new proclamation, a new kind of ban. This one is not about who can leave, or what skills they can take with them. This one is about who can trade with whom. The king, in his infinite wisdom, has decided that the colonies can only trade with England. All goods, whether they are raw materials from the New World or finished goods from the Old, must pass through English ports. Historians often debate whether these so-called navigation acts were a masterstroke of economic policy or a short-sighted act of tyranny that fueled the fires of rebellion. For you on the ground, it's just another ban, another attempt to control a world that is too vast, too wild, too free to be controlled. The news spreads through the community like a cold wind, chilling everyone to the bone. People are angry. Of course, the merchants are furious. The farmers are worried, and the common folk are resentful. They all see it for what it is: not an act of protection, but an act of control. The king is not trying to help them. He is trying to own them. You, the former port inspector, feel a bitter sense of irony. You left a world of bans and controls only to find yourself in a new one. But this time, you are not an enforcer. You are a subject. You are a victim. The community, which had been slowly healing from the rift caused by Elias, is now united in its anger. Elias himself, a man who had once argued for a new kind of spiritual control, now stands side by side with the merchants and the farmers, railing against the king's new laws. He understands, as you do, that this new ban is not about religion. It's about power. It's about a distant king trying to pull the strings of a world he doesn't understand. A world he can't see. A world he can't feel. You are no longer just a man who escaped a miserable job. You are a member of a community that is now under threat. You are a part of a larger story, a larger rebellion. You look at Liam, who is now playing with the flowers he picked, his face full of a child's innocent joy. And you feel a fierce sense of protectiveness. You did not come all this way for him to live under a new kind of tyranny. You did not come all this way for his future to be decided by a king thousands of miles away. You came here for freedom, and you will fight for it. The community starts to talk, to plan, to whisper of resistance. Not a violent rebellion. Not yet. But a quiet, steady defiance. They will find new ways to trade. They will find new markets. They will find ways to circumvent the new ban. Just as the smugglers in England did. You, the man who once stood on the docks, watching for smugglers, are now a part of the conspiracy. You are a part of the resistance, and you feel a sense of purpose you've never felt before. You are no longer just building a home. You are building a nation. The air in the new settlement has a different texture now. It's no longer just the scent of pine and earth. It's also the palpable tension of a people under siege. Not by an invading army, but by a distant king's decree, the new trade ban or the Navigation Act. As the official papers call it, hangs over the community like a storm cloud, threatening to choke the very life out of their fledgling economy. You see it in the faces of the merchants, the farmers, The laborers a renewed sense of frustration, a feeling of being trapped, a bitter echo of the life you all left behind. You, the man who once enforced a ban, find yourself at the heart of the resistance. Your history, once a source of shame and regret, is now your greatest asset. You understand how these things work. You know the loopholes, the oversights, the human vulnerabilities in any system of control. You know that a law, no matter how grandly it's proclaimed, is only as strong as the people who enforce it. And you know that in a world as vast and untamed as this, enforcement is a near impossible task. The community starts to meet in hushed tones after the day's work is done. They gather around a bonfire, the firelight dancing on their worried faces. And they talk of defiance. You find yourself speaking more than you ever have before. You explain to them how the old ban worked, how smugglers would use false manifests, hidden compartments, and the cover of night to get their goods across the sea. You tell them about the bribes, the unofficial currency of the docks, and how a law that looks unyielding on paper can be bent and broken by human ingenuity and desperation. A little-known fact from this period is the surprising resilience of colonial smuggling networks, which often operated with the tacit approval of local officials and even some royal governors. You tell them about this, about the unofficial system that ran parallel to the official one, a system built on trust, on need, and on a shared contempt for the king's laws. You're not just giving them a history lesson, you're giving them a blueprint for rebellion. You're teaching them how to fight back, not with muskets and swords, but with wits and guile. Ilara and Liam are always there, listening. Ilara, the gentle weaver, is now a part of this resistance. She sees it as a fight for her son's future, a fight for the right to a simple, honest life. Liam, the boy who once played with flowers, now listens with a solemn intensity, his young mind absorbing the harsh realities of his new world. You are not just building a new life for them. You are building a new understanding of the world, a new way of thinking. But the resistance is not without its risks. The king's officials, while far away, are not blind. They send agents, men who are supposed to enforce the new laws. To the colonies, you hear whispers of them in the nearby settlements, men who are supposed to be like the old you, men who are supposed to stand on the docks and inspect the ships and make sure that the king's word is law. You feel a strange sense of pity for them. They are in a new world, trying to enforce an old world's rules. They are doomed to fail. The first major act of defiance comes a few weeks later. A ship, the Colonial Hope, arrives with a cargo of finished goods from a rival European power. According to the king's new ban, the goods are illegal. They are supposed to be confiscated, and the ship is supposed to be impounded. But the community, working together, has a plan. They've arranged for the ship to anchor in a hidden cove, far from the prying eyes of any potential royal agents. Under the cover of night, a longboat is sent out, and the goods are quietly offloaded, piece by piece, and then hidden in the forest. You, the former inspector, are in the longboat, helping to carry the goods. A wide, triumphant grin on your face. You're on the other side of the law now, and it feels exhilarating. The next morning, the Colonial Hope sails into the main port, its captain wearing a mask of studied innocence. A nervous young royal agent, a man who looks exactly like the old you, boards the ship. He inspects the manifest, which, thanks to the collective ingenuity of the community, is a flawless work of fiction. He searches the ship, finding nothing. He leaves, his face a mixture of confusion and frustration, and the captain and the community share a silent, victorious look. You've won the first round, but this is just the beginning. The king will not give up. He will send more agents, he will create new laws, he will try to tighten the noose around the necks of the colonies. You know this. You understand the nature of power, the insatiable need to control. But you also understand the nature of freedom, the unquenchable desire to be your own master. You are no longer just a man who ran away. You are a man who is fighting back. You are a part of a rebellion that is just beginning. A rebellion that is being built, not on a battlefield, but in the quiet whispers of a community, in the brave acts of defiance, and in the hands of a former port inspector who has finally found his true purpose. The whispers of defiance have grown into a steady, determined hum. The community, once a collection of individuals united only by their shared journey, has now coalesced into a functioning, self-reliant entity bound by a shared sense of injustice. The king's new ban, far from crushing their spirit, has only served to galvanize it. You, the man who once felt so alone in his misery, are now an integral part of this collective will, a living testament to the fact that a man can change, and that a law can be defied. Your cabin, once a place of quiet solitude, is now a regular meeting place. People come to you, seeking advice on how to get around the new trade regulations. You, the former port inspector, now find yourself teaching others how to be smugglers. It's a surreal twist of fate, a poetic irony that you appreciate in the quiet hours of the night. You teach them about false manifests, about using hidden coves and secret trade routes. You teach them the importance of a network of trust, of a silent community that looks out for its own. One evening, as you were explaining to a group of farmers how to get their surplus crops to a friendly Dutch settlement, you see Alara watching you, a small, knowing smile on her face. Later, as the others have gone, she brings you a cup of tea, a rare luxury in the New World. You found your calling, she says, her voice soft. You were never meant to enforce laws. You were meant to help people break them. Her words, while a bit of a joke, hold a profound truth. You were never comfortable in your role as a gatekeeper. Your conscience, your empathy, always got in the way. But in this new role, as a guide to defiance, you feel a sense of purpose, a feeling that you are finally where you belong. The king's agents, as you predicted, are a nuisance, but not a real threat. They are men of the old world, men who rely on official papers and bureaucratic procedures. They are lost in the vastness of the new world, unable to comprehend the simple, brutal truth that out here, the king's word is just a piece of paper, and the real law is the one you make for yourself. You hear stories of them trying to enforce the ban, only to be met with a silent, unified front of a community that simply refuses to cooperate. They seize one ship's cargo, and two more arrive the next week with goods from a rival country, having used a different, more secret route. It's a game of cat and mouse, and the mouse, in this case, has the home field advantage. Historians still debate whether the king's officials were simply incompetent or if they were, in some cases, also complicit in the smuggling trade. A little-known detail of the period, you, from your unique perspective, know it's a bit of both. Some of them are just inept, unable to adapt to the new reality. Others, you suspect, are just like the old Alistair, men who have learned that the unofficial currency of bribes is often more valuable than the official currency of the crown. The old world's sickness, it seems, has traveled across the ocean with everyone, even the king's men. But here, the bribes are not just for personal gain. They are for the good of the community. A small but vital act of rebellion. The resistance is not just about defying the king's ban, it's also about building a new identity. The colonists are no longer just Englishmen in a new land. They are something else. They are Americans. They are a people who have learned to rely on themselves, to govern themselves, and to stand up for themselves. The king's ban, in a strange, unintended way, has given them a common enemy, a shared purpose, a reason to see themselves not as a collection of individuals, but as a collective. It has forged them into a nation. You look at Liam, who is no longer a small boy, but a sturdy hardworking youth. And you see the future. You see a boy who has grown up in a world of defiance, a world where freedom is not a given, but a thing to be fought for. You have not just escaped the old world, you have helped to build a new one. And as the years go on, and the king's new laws become just another part of the constant, low-level rebellion, you feel a sense of peace that you never thought was possible. You, the man who was once the miserable enforcer of a ban, are now a quiet hero of a new nation. The new world is no longer just a place of trees and earth. It's a world of memory and legacy. The king's ban, once a looming threat, has now settled into the rhythm of daily life, a constant irritant that the colonists have learned to live with and to subvert. The smuggling routes you helped establish are now a well-oiled machine, a vital lifeline that keeps the community thriving and connected to the wider world. You, the former inspector, have become a quiet legend, a man whose unique history is a source of both admiration and reassurance. Years have passed, and the small community you helped build has grown into a bustling, self-reliant town. You've seen the forest give way to fields, the rough-hewn cabins replaced by sturdy wooden homes. You've seen Liam, the small boy you met on the ship, grow into a strong, capable young man. He is a skilled carpenter, his hands moving with a graceful precision that you never mastered. He has taken a wife, a kind young woman from a neighboring settlement, and they are expecting their first child. You are to be a grandfather, not by blood, but by bond. And the thought fills you with a quiet, profound joy. Alara is no longer just a weaver. She is a respected elder of the community. Her weaving business a source of pride and prosperity for the town. Her patterns, once a private act of defiance, are now a symbol of the town's identity, a beautiful testament to the resilience of a people who refuse to be broken. She and you, once strangers, are now a family. You share a home, a life, and a quiet, comfortable companionship that you wouldn't trade for all the gold in the world. But the old world, in its stubborn, relentless way, is not yet done with you. A new royal governor arrives, a man with a reputation for being ruthless and unyielding. He is not like the others, the inept, easily swayed agents. He is a man who believes in the king's authority with a religious fervor. His name is Governor Blackwell, and he has come to enforce the ban, to crush the smuggling networks, and to bring the rebellious colonists to heel. The whispers in the community, which had been so full of defiance, are now tinged with a new, unsettling fear. This is not a man you can bribe. This is not a man you can fool. This is a man who will burn the town down to enforce the law. You, the man who has lived a life of quiet defiance. Feel a familiar knot of dread in your stomach. You've become soft in your old age, comfortable in your life of peace and quiet, but the old instincts, the instincts of a man who understands the nature of a ban, begin to stir. You know this man will not be satisfied with just seizing goods. He will want to make an example. He will want to find the leaders of the resistance, the men who have been teaching others how to break the law. And you know, with a chilling certainty, that you are at the top of his list. The community looks to you for guidance, for reassurance. They see you as a hero, a man who has always known how to outsmart the crown. But you know that this time is different. This is not a game of wits. It is a game of survival. You gather the town elders, the men and women who have been a part of the resistance since the beginning. You tell them that the old ways of defiance will not work against this man. He will not be deterred by a false manifest or a hidden cove. He will find a way. A recurring debate among historians is whether the early colonial governors were truly effective in their roles, or if they were largely seen as outsiders with little real power. A concept that was changing with men like Blackwell? You explain this to the elders. You tell them that men like Blackwell represent a new, more dangerous era of colonial rule, An era where the crown is no longer content to simply let the colonies govern themselves. The crown wants control. Real, tangible control. And to get that, they are willing to use force. The community, for the first time, is truly afraid. But fear, can be a powerful motivator. It can either crush you or it can forge you into something stronger. You look at Liam, a young man who has never known the fear of the old world, and you see a new kind of resolve in his eyes. He is not just fighting for a life, he is fighting for a legacy. He is fighting for the right of his child, your grandchild, to grow up in a world where freedom is not just a word, but a reality. The final decision is made. You will not run. You will not hide. You will stand and face Blackwell, not as a smuggler, not as a rebel, but as a man. You will not give him the satisfaction of crushing a helpless community. You will show him that the spirit of freedom, once planted in this new world, cannot be uprooted by a king's decree or a governor's force. You will show him that a new nation has been born, and that its people are willing to fight for their right to exist. The final act is not a storm, not a sea voyage, but a confrontation. Governor Blackwell arrives with a contingent of armed men, his face a mask of cold, unyielding authority. The town, your town, stands silent and defiant. The women and children are inside, but the men and women of the resistance, the builders, the farmers, the weavers, stand in the town square, a silent wall of defiance. You, the oldest among them, stand at the front, your hands clasped behind your back, your posture betraying nothing but a quiet resolve. Blackwell dismounts his horse, his boots crunching on the packed earth of the square. He looks at you, his eyes narrowing in recognition. "I know who you are," he says, his voice a low growl. "You're the man who threw his seal into the sea, the man who taught these people how to be criminals. You don't deny it. You don't apologize. I am a man who chose freedom over duty. Governor," you say, your voice steady and clear. "And these people are not criminals. They are free men and women who have built a new world with their own hands." He laughs, a harsh, humorless sound. "Freedom," he sneers. "There is no freedom without law, and I am the law here." The standoff is a tense, silent thing. The armed men behind Blackwell look nervous, unsure of what to do. They are used to dealing with individual criminals, not with a unified, defiant community. And Blackwell, for all his bluster, can see it. He can see that he is not just facing a few smugglers, he is facing a nation in its infancy. He can see that the spirit of freedom, once planted, cannot be so easily uprooted. Liam, now a man, steps forward, his hand on your shoulder. "We will not be a part of your kingdom, Governor," he says, his voice firm and unwavering. "We will not be ruled by a king who sees us as nothing more than a source of revenue. We will be our own people." Blackwell's face hardens. He raises his hand, a signal to his men. This is it. This is where the old world meets the new, where the law of the king meets the will of the people. But then, he hesitates. He looks at your face, a face that is now a roadmap of defiance and resolve. He looks at Liam's face, a face of youthful determination. He looks at the faces of the community, a sea of quiet strength, and he knows, with a chilling certainty, that he cannot win this. He can kill them. Of course, he can burn the town to the ground, but he cannot break their spirit. He cannot kill their idea of freedom. He lowers his hand. "This is not over," he says, his voice now a low whisper. "The king will not forget this." He turns, a defeated, angry man, and he rides away, his men following in his wake. The town remains silent for a long, quiet moment. And then, A cheer erupts, a loud, joyous sound that echoes through the trees and across the fields. A sound of victory, a sound of freedom. You, the man who once stood alone, are now standing in the middle of a celebration, a quiet hero of a new nation. The years continue to pass. The king, despite Blackwell's threats, never truly manages to crush the colonies. The seeds of rebellion have been planted, and they are too deep, too strong, to be uprooted. The smuggling networks continue to thrive, and the spirit of defiance, once a small ember, has now become a raging fire that will one day consume an empire. You, the man who once enforced a ban, now sit by the fire with Liam and his wife. A new baby on your lap. You tell the child stories, not of kings and castles, but of a long sea journey, of a band that was meant to crush a people, and of a man who chose freedom. You tell the child of the old world, the world you left behind, and of the new world, the world you helped to build. You tell the child that freedom is not a gift, it is a choice. The fire crackles, a steady, soothing sound. The baby on your lap begins to drift to sleep, its small chest rising and falling in a gentle rhythm. The day is done, the work is over, and the past is a story to be told, a lesson to be learned. The world is a different place now, and you, the man who once felt so lost, are now a part of something bigger, something more important than you could have ever imagined. The cold wind of the past is gone, replaced by the warm, steady embrace of a future that is finally, truly your own. The story of a miserable job has ended, but the story of a new nation has just begun.